Powered by Riverside FM.
This week, we're looking up, way up. Those long white streaks behind airplanes have sparked one of the most persistent modern conspiracies chemtrails. We've got arguments ranging from a secret agenda for military weather control to the government attempting mind control to a plot to prepare us for a one world government. Or is it simply the science of high altitude humidity? Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks. Also, if you like our content, please don't forget to like, follow, and share with your friends who like the same crazy stuff you do.
Hello, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Tax season is upon us. Did you know that 47% of Americans are planning to use their tax refunds for everyday expenses, home improvements, and vacations? What if you used your tax refund for a new home instead? Again, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Your tax refund can be used towards down payment, closing costs, or paying down existing debt to help get approved. So before you spend that tax refund, let's get together and see how to best utilize those funds to invest in your future and your new home. Call or text me at 502-680-0953. Again, that's 502-680-0953. NMLS.
I'm Steve, and I've not seen a conspiracy that I don't like.
I'm Jerry, the analytical skeptic of the group that says, show me the proof.
I'm Brett. I'm the mediator between the two elders and usually cast the deciding vote.
You know, Jerry, Brett's not here tonight, so that's why we didn't have the boom, 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 boom.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we know.
Yeah, this guy, of all the things he could be doing today, you know what this guy's doing tonight?
What is Brett doing?
He went deep sea diving for sea cucumbers.
Really?
Yeah.
Would have never thought of it, Brett.
Weird, right?
I'm telling you.
And he's not even using scuba gear. He's seeing how long he can hold his breath. At least he's trying to do that with his wife's hand on the back of his neck. I don't know what that meant, but he sent me a picture or something and said, hello. He's having a hell of a good time, apparently.
Apparently. Sounds like it. It sounds like it.
So, we have a interesting show tonight.
Yes, we do. We think so anyway. We hope our listeners do as well.
Well, yeah. If they listen to our stuff, man, they're going to love this.
I think so. This is one that all of us got excited about. I know Brett, no jokes, really hates missing. He was looking forward to this one as well. It's not just you and I. Brett loved it and couldn't wait for us to cover this one. We've actually been talking about covering tonight's show, which is Chemtrails, by the way. We've actually been talking about covering this for how long? A couple of years at least.
At least.
For those that don't know, Steve, 2 or 3 years ago, got interested in aeronautics and decided to get his pilot's license and went through and did all of the training, I think, up to the point of actually taking the final test.
Then COVID happened.
And kind of killed everything. You had a friend that was one of your flight instructors that was really good instructor.
One of my best friends in the world.
Yes,
Stephanie.
Absolutely. Still. And we, for a long time, was going to have Stephanie on for this episode. She would have been a great expert.
Yeah, the thing about being a great pilot is you're always gone.
Exactly. 2 or 3 times we had it scheduled and something would come up and she had to cancel. And then we come up with yet another absolute fantastic expert, Mr. Mike, Steve's father-in-law. Now, for those of you that have been with us for a while, you've heard us talk about Mr. Mike. He's been a commercial pilot for a major airline for a few decades. Actually, I think he's getting close to retiring now. Gives you an idea of how long he's been doing this. Before that, he was a military pilot. He's flown all kinds of aircraft, military, small planes, large commercial jets. Can't think of a better expert we could have possibly had on. Sadly, he wasn't able to make it either.
You know why?
Why couldn't he make it?
He currently has stolen one of his company jets and he's out. Apparently, according to our numbers, he's in the country of Somalia in China.
I was getting ready to say the reason for our longtime listeners that they may have heard us talk about Mr. Mike early on, we began seeing our podcasts that was being downloaded in countries that you nor I knew anyone. A grand total of 0. And the only thing that we could possibly figure out that Mr. Mike, God bless his heart, was borrowing the company jet, flying to some other countries, Slovakia, we're looking at you, and just to download the podcast to help spread the word. So, yeah, Mr. Mike, we certainly appreciate the efforts and the links that you have went to. Now, again,
can you imagine how long it is for him to solo fly a commercial jet to China?
Exactly, yeah. Slovakia and all these other countries.
Dude, we just appreciate you, Mike.
That we do. Some would call what we just described absurd. A conspiracy theory. I'm not known to be a conspiracy theorist. Folks, this is one that I believe. Again, as Steve said, Mr. Mike, thank you so much for helping so many countries around the world hear about newsworthy. By the way, on a serious note, you have an open invitation to any episode you ever want to come on. Many thanks.
And while we're in that vein, if you happen to live in Slovakia and you listen to the show, please reach out to us. We want to get you on the show just to talk to you and figure out why you have been with us for almost 4 years now.
Yes,
we appreciate you.
And not only with us,
actively listening, always in the top 5.
The top 5 countries, yes, Slovakia. We still know a grand total of
0 people.
We would like to change that, and we will if you'll reach out to us. And let us know.
We have some listeners in Puerto Rico and Mexico that we have gained because they have found a sticker in a bathroom that I put on a wall somewhere. True story. Never
even
been
had
to
one
Slovakia.
of those gentlemen comment.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
on our YouTube page.
And what's funny is I can actually remember where every one of those stickers are. I'm stoked. But anywho, so we are talking about chemtrails, contrails tonight.
Yep.
There's a few now. There are a million different conspiracies having to do with chemtrails, contrails.
Some are really, really off the rails.
I'm going to give you a list of the things we're not covering today. If you want us to cover these in depth, great. Reach out to us at our website, Jerry.
Newsworthy with StephenJerry.com.
There's a contact us button. Hit that button. Fill out whatever information you want, but mainly let us know what you want to hear about on the show because we love to do that. So some of the things we're not going to do. We're not going to cover invisible surveillance dust. We are not going to cover terraforming agents.
Explain that one just a little bit.
Basically, that is something that is where people think that there's air. We're putting aerosol in that is changing the fundamental shape and fauna of different parts of the world. Not doing that.
Want to go one step further? What do some of the craziest beliefs think? What is the reason that we're doing some of this terraforming for, and who?
Well, we can get into that because some of that will be on a later episode when we talk about some of these crazy billionaires in the New World Order, including Bill Gates, and the trying to shield our nation and our world from the sun. Basically,
that's not even the crazy ones I was referring to. Some of these believe that our governments and governments around the world, at the behest of aliens, are terraforming for aliens. Getting our planet ready for aliens to come and live here.
Yeah, that way water can't win, like in the movie Signs. Basically, those are just some of the ones we're not going to cover. We're not going to cover population control. We're not going to cover basically, we're just going to leave it at that because some of the others do touch into what we're going to cover today. A couple of the two that I'm going to cover specifically are mood manipulation and weather
Did you say
manipulation.
moon or mood?
Mood.
Okay, good.
Because of all of the conspiracy theories around chemtrails, I found these two to be not only the most plausible, but the most possible, and
I would agree.
to have reasoning behind it and could understand why somebody would think such a thing. Now, I've been all over the fence on this. When we first talked about it, Jerry, I thought that's a bunch of hooey, having been a pilot, right? Then I got into doing some research and I'm like, well, wait a minute. There's a couple of things here. There's a couple of points and points that something could be going on, even to the degree that other people don't know it. To me, that you often say that if you have a conspiracy, a secret, it has to be a very small group. If it's a very big group, it's going to leak. There's going to be whistleblowers.
No matter how dangerous, no matter how widespread, no matter look at some of the things that Edward Snowden let us know about. He risked his very life, had to leave the country that he and his parents, his grandparents were born and raised in, and moved to an enemy of ours to spend the rest of his life simply because he was willing to let us know. Secrets are going to get shared. Yes, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We'll just get into it. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Let me pull up my printer. I have had.
Let me start. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I've had such a technical, difficult week this week. I normally have everything printed out and go right from a paper. I was unable to do that this time. But yeah, go ahead, Jerry. What was you going to say?
Do you want me to start with a little background info on the what we're discussing? Chemtrails. At the heart of the chemtrail theory, which, by the way, is often referred to by the acronym SLAP, which stands for Secret Large-Scale Atmospheric Program. But at the heart of that is the allegation that those white lines that we see up in the sky behind the planes, that those are actually more than just frozen water vapor. The proponents of these theories of chemtrails, they argue that they're a toxic mix of aluminum, strontium, and barium that are being sprayed in secret. Now, believe it or not, roughly 1 in 6 people worldwide buy into this narrative, at least at some level. One study that was conducted by Nature.com recently showed that almost 30% of Americans, almost 1/3 of Americans, found the conspiracy to be at least somewhat true, which is why we decided to cover it and see if it is truly newsworthy. First, some of the facts. The term chemtrail, which is itself a play on contrail, which is itself shorthand for condensation trail. At its very simplest, a contrail is just that. It's a line of ice crystals that are formed when the hot exhaust from the engines of the airplane hit the freezing air, which is usually miles above the earth. Now, these trails are mostly water. They do contain tiny amounts of soot and sulfur, which is a byproduct of burning jet fuel. It's roughly 0.05% by weight. Very small amount, but they are enough to act as seeds for the ice to grow on. Whether these trails vanish in seconds or stay, some of them linger for hours. Scientists tell us that is not a sign of a conspiracy. It is a sign of the humidity at that particular level, at that latitude. Now, we actually saw the power of the contrails. We were talking about this last week. We actually saw the power of these contrails right after 9/11. There was a 3-day grounding of all aircraft. And what happened was, without all these contrails, it traps heat at night and reflect the heat during the day. The daily temperature range shifted by as much as 3 degrees Fahrenheit, depending somewhat different variations in different parts of the United States and actually the world. It turns out that whether a trail persists is entirely up to the atmospheric conditions, the temperature, the humidity, as we mentioned, which, by the way, the humidity at 30,000 feet is often extremely different from the humidity level at the ground. Now, the roots of the chemtrail narrative go back to a 1996 United States Air Force report that was called Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. That's literally the name of it. They wrote it in 1996. The military was trying to figure out what can we do to figure out in 30 years from now how to modify the weather to help us in our military ambitions. It was an entirely a speculative academic exercise. It wasn't saying, here's what we're doing. It was saying, is any of this possible? Can we manipulate the weather? Again, it wasn't a manual for an existing program. It was rather a what if scenario for the future. But when you combine the hypothetical report with the fact that legitimate cloud seeding research has been public knowledge since the 1940s, it's pretty easy to see how that some people would take these two out of context and create the ideas that begin to form what we now know as the conspiracy theory of chemtrails. Now, after the facts, the conspiracy theories. Proponents of the theory distinguish between standard contrails, which evaporate quickly, and persistent trails. They claim that those must contain hidden additives. There must be something that they've added that makes these stay for so long, when others we see disappear within a matter of a few seconds. They argue that those lingering plumes are actually chemtrails, which are covertly dispersed chemical or biological agents distributed for reasons kept secret from the public. And the motives for these vary widely. Steve has went over some of the ones that we're not going to cover, some of the more crazy ones. I'll go over a few more. Been talked about as a tool for population control. Some say that it is used for DNA manipulation. Some say it's used as a part of extraterrestrial terraforming project. Some say it's a spiritual preparation for a one world government under the Antichrist. More recently, some claimed that it was being used to spread COVID-19. Shortly afterwards, the almost exact opposite was claimed. Some people said that it was being used to distribute the vaccine. Now, look, the rabbit hole goes really, really deep on this one. If you haven't figured that out by now, we're going to skip those wildest fringe theories, as Steve said. We want to spend our time on the ones that are a little more grounded, the ones that use enough real science to make them feel almost believable to the average person. That is what you're going to be covering, Steve.
Yeah, I just a couple of things about what you said, Jerry.
Sure.
As someone who has been in the air, has flown solo, and had to learn a lot about aviation. A lot of folks don't realize when a jet is at a certain height that the pilots have no choice in that. It is based on wind trajectory. Are they flying into the wind? Or if they are, they're trying to find the least amount of wind resistance. All of that is based on fuel consumption, because that's the number one biggest expense of an airline in flight. So if they can climb 5,000 feet and get a more favorable air pocket, that's where they're going to do, with permission, of course, from all of those flights are controlled by towers. They're controlled by, there's, I believe, 4 major centers in the United States that control everything above a certain level. So it wouldn't make sense for a pilot to be in on it.
Right.
He doesn't get to choose a lot of what he does when he flies. He'll get a notice from a tower or a control center saying, hey, winds are more favorable for your current trajectory, climb 5,000 feet at heading, whatever. And that's where he has to be.
Right.
It's not like when you're driving down the road, you get to choose, I'm going to go I-75 or I-64 down the highway, or even the speed you do get to choose. When you're driving down the road, you can choose to do 70 or you can choose to do 80. That's your choice. They do not have that choice. Every single thing that they do is controlled. And the reason for that is the amount of traffic and air traffic over just the United States, for example. If one of those people decide to go rogue and fly at whatever they want to fly, it could be catastrophic in a matter of moments, because there could be another jet flying Here's a good example. If you have a jet that is flying at 30,000 feet westward from Atlanta to California, and then you have that not the same jet, but a different jet flying from the same airport to Atlanta, at 25,000 feet because the jet stream is favorable for him that way. That's only 5,000 feet. Those jets are going to see each other. But they're traveling at 500 miles per hour. So they're going to see each other for a split second. Not enough time to make an emergency adjustment.
Sure.
That's why everything up there is so hyper controlled. And you have to follow what they do, or you will see a couple of jets fly up beside you and correct you course, and you'll be relieved of your license when you land. It is for passenger safety. There is a reason that even though there are accidents in aviation, we had one in Louisville not too very long ago, it is still by far the safest mode of transportation in the world. And it is because it is hyper controlled.
The biggest example of that come into play that I remember recently, do you remember maybe a year ago when the military helicopter in the Washington, D.C. area? And if I remember hearing the final reports, it was the military's fault. They weren't following established protocol. They thought they had the right to override it.
They did.
And that's what happens when you don't.
That, unfortunately, it got filtered down even more. It wasn't a military. It was the helicopter pilot.
Oh, themselves. Okay. Yes. Okay.
They had justified and realized that the pilot had more than enough time and more than enough visual to see the jet and thought they could beat it.
And that's exactly what you've been saying.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you don't follow the air traffic controllers and do what you're told and stay at the right altitude.
Yes, it's very controlled. And for a young pilot, such as myself, you flying a single engine Cessna coming into a tower controlled airport is a nerve-wracking thing.
Oh, sure.
Because you go from flying around in the hillsides where nobody cares under 5,000 feet what you do, because it's all what they call VFR, it's visual flight.
Right.
To tower controlled flight, where you have to be at the heading, you have to be at the altitude, you have to land when they say. It's very controlled, especially the one time that I got to fly into Lexington. Beautiful fly-in, by the way, to the Bluegrass Airport. They actually held a Delta jet at the edge of the runway for me to land, and you could just hear the Delta jet say, "Oh."
Now, for the uneducated, the reason you brought that up tonight in context of chemtrails is some would say that it's individual pilots trying to do whatever they want to do.
Yes.
And you're saying that it's absurd. It doesn't work. You have catastrophic crashes if that happens.
Exactly. The reason for that is I'm trying to eliminate a layer.
Right.
Because everything above or in clouds or above a certain elevation is all tower control.
Right.
So if this were to be a real conspiracy, and we're going to get into some juicy stuff, but if it were to be a real conspiracy, all of those people would have to be in, unless, and I'm going to leave you hanging with that, because there's some reasons how that might work without all those people knowing. And this is why I tilted back toward maybe there's something there.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, Jerry, you covered it already as to what contrails actually are. But what I want to talk about first, and I think I'm going to break it down into two sections.
Okay.
There's two sections that I truly believe could have impact as to why we would want to invest money and actually do this type of technology. The first you mentioned, weather manipulation. He who controls the weather controls the world, quite frankly.
Sure.
Now, what's real? Because guess what? Believe it or not, we actually have some very real weather manipulation available through aerosol and other types of airplane emitted
cloud seeding, that type of thing.
Cloud seeding is one.
And we've been doing that for a long time. This is not new.
We've been cloud seeding since the 1940s. Yep. Another one that you may not have heard of, especially in high traffic airports, cloud or fog dissipation. Thank you, dissipation. I couldn't get it out for nothing. Where we go up and we do the exact opposite of cloud seeding. We put stuff in there to remove the clouds because fog is just a cloud that's ground level.
Sure.
Another one that is a big and really high impact storm is hail suppression.
Yep.
And this is where they go in and they put things in the atmosphere that are detrimental to the formation of hail. Basically, they are taking those little particles of rain that get put in, and basically hail is a raindrop that keeps going up and down throughout the storm and freezes bigger every time more water attaches to it before it's too big, and it finally gravity wins and it falls to the ground. The higher the cloud tops, the more likely and the bigger the hail. It has more room to travel in the freeze zone, if you will, before it gets heavy enough to drop to the ground. They can go in and kind of dissipate these storms and drop the cloud tops and remove some of the hail threats. Now,
Can I interrupt for
sure,
1 second?
go ahead.
I didn't even know you were going to cover that. While you were talking about it, I Googled to see what reason might we possibly want. This stuff isn't cheap, right? If they're
No,
doing this.
it's not
So
cheap at all.
what possible reason would we have? I Googled, how much do severe hailstorms cost? It says severe hailstorms in the United States cause an estimated $8 to $22 billion in damages every year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of incentive to try to figure out how to stop
Yeah, I
hail.
wonder how much of that is roofs.
A lot.
I would say most of it. The
Yes.
rest is cars,
Yes.
windshields, and stuff.
Yes.
The other thing in high mountain areas, Switzerland, Denver, is snowpack enhancement.
And they've been doing that for a long time.
They've been doing that a whole lot,
Long
and you
time.
can, and they don't even have to be in the air to do that. They can
Yeah.
actually, they have machines, snow making machines now that are just incredible machines. So those are some of the reasons why we currently try to manipulate the weather. However, what we're talking about here has nothing to do with the EPA, and it has everything to do with the U.S. Army, the U.S. Marine Corps, the U.S. Navy, and the U.S. Air Force. Because if you can control the weather, much like there were rumors, and if Brett were here, he was going to cover one particular about a actual official government program that we tried to control the weather in Vietnam during the war by just making it rain and rain and rain, even more so than the normal rainy
Yeah.
season, to slow the movement of the Viet Cong. If you take that one step further, if you're fighting it, today's a good example. If we had the weather manipulation technology and we're about to send a ground force in against Iran, it'd be really great for them to have a lot of rain so their tanks get stuck in the mud. And we know that going in and pre-plan for that. It gives us a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
And it's not something we would want to share with the rest of the world. We might rent it out. We might rent, oh, you need this done for that. Okay, well, it'll cost you either favor or finance, whatever. But if you control that opportunity, if you can control that or manipulate a weather system or a weather pattern over a particular area, especially to the point where it's before a particular battle,
Sure.
that's a huge benefit. And it's
Absolutely.
worth several billions to invest. However, the problem with that is now you have to have a worldwide opportunity of doing that. And let me introduce folks that don't know anything about this. We've covered this on one of our other shows. I'd like to cover it again because it reeks of conspiracy all by itself. But in conjunction with this particular technology, and I'm leaving it, if we had the ability to seed clouds around the world, we'd have to have a way to control whatever it is we seed to do what it is supposed to do. And we'd have to do that from a single source within the United States. Just so happens up in Alaska, we have a particular, what's the word I'm looking for? Facility that could maybe do just that. Let me introduce you to HAARP, the High Frequency Active Aurora Research Program. Basically a huge antenna that sticks off the top of the world in Alaska. Now, according to the conspiracy theories, here's why it is a cultural lightning rod. It's remote. It's covered in antenna. It is a proven fact. It utilizes high power radio waves. It was originally funded and built by the military. And it deals with invisible forces that the average person has no idea what's going on. Not only that, it has the very ability to affect the ionosphere, which is in the area and that's in the same part of the, how do you say, the plane of existence, if you will, as the jet streams. So it makes a perfect thought, right? To have that, to beam a beam wherever it needs to go, to enact whatever weather event needs to happen. HAARP also has been accused of creating earthquakes. It's also been accused of creating very violent storms. It has been accused of, and in conjunction with, now some of this is, what's the saying that you always say? Causation does not equal
Correlation.
Correlation does not equal causation.
Yeah.
However, every time HAARP is fired up, something major happens around the world, be it a hurricane, shooting up the Hurricane Rita is a good example of a HAARP directed attack, if you will. Hurricane Rita was a tropical storm, rapidly approached category 3 storm. HAARP fired up, and all of a sudden Hurricane Rita went from a relatively normal Cat 3 storm to the largest storm of last year, and had a weird turn up north. So it kind of went and then made a hard right turn after HAARP was fired up. Again, is that because of HAARP? I'll leave that to your speculation. However, the last major earthquake in Japan happened right after HAARP was fired up. So there's a lot
I'm confused about one thing. What's the correlation between HAARP and chemtrails?
So good. Thank you for bringing me back to the point. I was trying to explain what HAARP's been accused of.
Okay.
HAARP would be the trigger if you had an aerosol particulate that you have put out over the entire world, which is kind of what we have to do if we're talking about weather manipulation because of jet streams and airwaves, and you would have to have a reason to control it. So if basically your aerosol, whatever you've sprayed through whatever means throughout the entire world, is out there unactivated, and you wanted to activate it in a very specific way, people think that specific way is HAARP. They fire HAARP up, they direct the beam to wherever the area is, and the chemtrail chemicals activate and create a storm, create a whatever. That's where that comes in.
Gotcha.
Now, guess what?
What's that?
Government scientists have even said that is entirely theoretically possible. There's one unfortunate catch to that problem.
What is the caveat to that?
The caveat is if HAARP to generate that much power would require the entirety of the power produced in the United States at one shot.
Slight problem.
So
that would mean that the rest of us would suddenly have a brownout in the entire America.
Yes.
Which has happened how many times in the last 100 years? Zero. Okay. Thank you.
I'm just saying, here at Newsworthy, we present all sides.
Absolutely.
But the simple fact is, they did say it was possible. They don't deny that it's even possible for that to be that type of trigger. But the power intake that it would take is
we're not quite there yet.
We're not anywhere close. However, another caveat, because this whole story is full of these, if you believe some other conspiracy theories based on the Black Pyramid that is located in Alaska as well as a power source, that could power HAARP to do that without making the entire nation go black. Now I'm coming back out of the weeds. If you want to hear about that story, let us know in the comments, please.
We have skirted around HAARP enough, and it's found its way into being mentioned in enough episodes. We need to dedicate it an episode to HAARP.
Because it is one of those things that a lot of people see it up there. It's actually controlled by a university now on the outside. I don't know what the internal paper says or where the funding still comes from. I have a feeling it's still militarily funded, but we do need to go into it. Here's the problem. First of all, there's no actual evidence of chemtrails. So humans really do lack the capability to control short-term weather on a global scale. Quite frankly, we can't outpower the sun. And the sun controls 99.9% of all weather and all weather situations on our planet. The other 0.01 is controlled by the moon.
Yep.
Not only that, it's scientifically unproven that HAARP can control weather. Although they have said that it could, but at unbelievable power.
They've not even said that it could, I don't think. They're saying it's within the realm of possibility.
Yes.
No experiment has even said that it has ever been proven that it could, even on a small scale.
Right. So that kind of takes the weather manipulation off the table. Now, one of the things that has been proposed, and Elon Musk has even proposed it for Mars, is ejecting a particulate into the atmosphere. This was several years ago. Now, let me digress because I don't want to confuse people by thinking Elon Musk said. Bill Gates actually said we could put a particulate in the air here to ward off global warming, to reflect some of the sun's lights, to, and
we are, by the way, actually proven fact, we are researching that very thing right now.
Perfect.
We know that beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. But not for here. It's for Elon Musk is doing that to re-terraform Mars to make it more habitable for humans.
No, I'm saying we also know that we're doing experiments to see if we can get that to work on Earth.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten there yet.
I hope they choose not to, because that would be catastrophic. Please don't mess with our atmosphere. That's all I'm saying. I kind of like our atmosphere the way it is. However, I got into it and I started digging into it, and I very quickly realized that I'm not buying the weather thing. I don't know if you could tell or not.
We could.
Cloud seeding, while it does happen, there are actual companies that countries pay to come say, hey, we need rain.
In very small areas.
Very small areas. The percentages are 15 to 40%. So it's not even a known science.
I heard 15 to 25.
Yeah.
Optimal result.
So it's not even very effective when you pay somebody to do it.
In small areas.
Yeah. In very
much less
small
to try
areas.
to do the entire world.
Right.
Yes.
Although I don't disagree, if you could control the weather, if you could zero it in, if you could do these things, you would own the world.
I also wouldn't disagree, but what the military is somewhere around the world actually experimenting on, still trying to do that today.
Absolutely.
I don't trust our government, even begin to trust our government enough to say they wouldn't be trying that. I am saying we haven't figured it out, and we're not doing it all over the world, but are we trying to? Probably.
I would take it one step further, even, Jerry. In the very last big major winter snowstorm that engulfed all of the Southeast, there was Air Force tanker flight activity that was very strange down in Texas and Louisiana, according to the flight maps of these, where they just were going what we call grid flying, just back and forth, flying a grid, which is normal for flights that are mapping the terrain or whatever. But these were tanker planes. They were known tanker planes for our U.S. military. 2 weeks later, we had the worst winter storm.
You done with the one a couple months ago?
Yeah.
A couple months ago.
Yeah. And there are prior to that storm firing up, we have evidence of these tankers doing that. So if I would say, if the government is attempting to do that, they are attempting to do it here where they control all the data. It's not like they're over in Zimbabwe trying to do it where they have no access to
What do you
the
mean
data.
by controlling the data?
Because our entire United States is covered with radar. Our entire United States is covered with tracking devices for every plane, everything that flies, everything that moves in the air is tracked in the United States.
Wouldn't you want to do it somewhere that doesn't have that, so you wouldn't have the?
No, because
you're leaving a paper trail of with what you just described, and then you have planes crisscrossing. You leave a paper trail of what you've done.
Right, but it's always we were flight training.
There's different reasons for
exactly. Sure. But what you have access here that you don't have in, say, Zimbabwe is all the medical data. If it were what we're going to talk about next, you have access to the hospital data, the arrest reports. You have access to how, in this particular case, for weather modification, you have access to how many car accidents there were, how slick the roads got, how much snow was. Did the snow melt the way it was supposed to? Did we accomplish these goals? So you have access to all the data. That's why you would test it here. And our government has proven time and time again that they have no qualms about testing whatever they choose to test on its own citizenry.
Speaking of that, do you mind if I interject something for just a second? During the Cold War, the British government conducted more than 750 mock chemical warfare attacks on their public, according to researchers. This subjected hundreds of thousands of people to zinc cadmium sulfide, a chemical chosen due to its small size. It's similar to that of germs, and because it glows under ultraviolet light, which makes it very easy to trace. The chemical was thought to be non-toxic at the time, though repeated exposure even then was known to be cancerous. The United States did the exact same thing in the 50s and 60s in San Francisco, using the chemical as a tracer to test the dispersion of biological weapons. Proven facts. You're absolutely 100% correct. We have done it many years ago, 70 years ago.
Yeah. So let's take a quick break, listen to Ed, and we'll be right back with mood manipulation. And I'm not talking about Barry White. We weren't just looking for a house. We wanted our forever home.
That's when we called Ed Locke at USA Mortgage. He helped us see the bigger picture.
Ed showed us how the right loan could fit our family's future, not just today's needs.
And he made sure every detail was clear, so we felt confident planting roots.
Hi, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Let's find the loan that makes your forever home possible. Call me today at 502-680-0953.
So, when I say the words mood manipulation, what's the first thing that pops in your mind?
Hippies from the 70s.
I was thinking like
burning some incense or something.
I was thinking more like a box of chocolates, some nice perfume.
See, I was the one going down the crazy rabbit hole immediately on that one.
What if I told you that you could control an entire population of people by just altering the atmosphere 1 or 2%?
I'm sure it would have an effect.
It absolutely would. And the reason and the way it has an effect is because our bodies are, since the creation of humans, however you choose to believe that we were created, have relied on the sun for healing, not only of the body, but of the mind, of the spirit.
Sure.
There is a whole thing to be said, especially, and I'm only speaking about the United States, about how many keyboard warriors we have today versus people out in the streets actually protesting whatever they want to protest.
Right.
So if you were being able to manipulate the mood, even a slight percentage of one way or the other, it would be enough to, if you were a government person who needed to control the populace because you were doing a lot of things that the populace wouldn't like. All you have to do is control the atmosphere by 1 or 2%. And all of a sudden, you go from having a bunch of people in the street to having a bunch of people on their keyboards because they don't have the time, the effort, or the energy to go out in the street and protest what you're doing. That's where the thought behind mood manipulation comes from.
Okay.
And it's based basically on light levels from our sun. Those control serotonin and circadian rhythms, cloud cover. Everybody in the world, and here's how these things get started. Because everybody in the world, after a few days of stormy weather or cloudy weather,
Or total darkness if you're in Alaska.
yeah,
Parts of Alaska.
you start to get on edge.
Yeah.
Your body starts to feel a certain way, and it's not a good way. I can't tell you how much just after a string of cloudy days to go out and just stand in the sun for 5 or 10 minutes, how much that heals your body. Barometric pressure can cause headaches. It can cause irritability, and barometric pressure increases where the sun is not. It's high and low systems. It's our weather patterns, unfortunately. Humidity can cause fatigue, cognitive clarity issues, and the color temperature of the sky, which is weird, but it can cause emotional perception issues. Like, I guess it's one of the reasons that back in the day they'd say, what was it? Red at night, farmer's delight, or sailor's delight. How does that go?
Red in the morning, sailors take warning. Red
Yes.
at night, sailors delight.
Yes. So,
And that's talking about sunrise and sunset.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth to that about being able to tell by the colors in the morning sky and evening sky.
Has
if
to
it's
do with
gonna-
barometric pressures and back in the day before we realized how weather all worked,
Exactly.
but it was very nice for that. Contrails, if they increased cloudiness in even just a slightly, they can indirectly affect mood in many, many ways that the natural processes already do. And this is the one that you and I went back and forth on a little bit on the show. And when I was talking to Mr. Mike about it before he stole a plane and flew to China,
Right. I couldn't make the show tonight.
he was like, "Oh, poppycock." But here's the reasons that I believe that this one of all of them could be the most plausible. Because you don't need hundreds of thousands of people to buy into this on the surface. Okay. And I bought into buying into this. Okay.
Okay.
Because because it doesn't require a storm, it doesn't require direction from an antenna facility in Alaska to make this work. An only requirement would be something of the nature, all you would have to do on the surface to make this work is have one scientist at the FAA say that this particular additive in the fuel will expand mileage per gallon for the jet engines. And then it goes in, and now Mike, as a pilot, doesn't know he's helping seed the clouds. He's just flying his jet.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a cloud seeding device attached to his jet. He doesn't have even the single engine pilot as putting the fuel in his aircraft is helping spread this, right? That's theoretically how this could work.
Yeah, although not realistically at all.
I
One
realize that.
scientist at the FAA is not going to combat the thousands of experiments that are going to be done at every
Right.
university, and every airline's going to pay for it because
Right.
they, like you said, it's one of the biggest expense an airline has, and they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that they are using the best fuel possible to get the best mileage. But anyway, didn't mean to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You steal my thunder all the time. It's what makes our show good. especially now that we don't tell jokes. We used to do that all the time. So it works. But the thing is, on the surface, it looks like you could have a handful of people, not one, but a handful of people that could control the entire, because it's a single choke point on the whole operation that doesn't require a buy-in from a pilot. It doesn't require a buy-in from a ground crew, because whatever fuel's in that tank is the fuel they're going to put in the aircraft.
I would strongly disagree, because
Jerry,
okay,
let me finish.
I'll let you finish.
Because you think differently than 80% of all the other people in the world.
No, exact opposite.
No,
I agree with 80% of the people in the world.
No,
the logic,
not even a little. Not even.
How many people? Wait a minute. How many people believe there's some validity to this chemtrails? Up to 30%, which means the other 70 is just like me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, they probably have hair. That's the difference.
This brain could either hold all of these brains or grow more hair. You see which I chose.
Wow, what a bad choice. Just kidding.
You're saying I got gypped, huh? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I feel the same way. I could either be really rich or this good looking.
Yep.
You see which I chose.
I got to make a note of that.
But on the surface, it seems very plausible. And truthfully, I was thinking that a couple of government agencies and a couple of faked documents, and my conspiracy mind was like all over this.
Okay.
Until I realized that I used to haul fuel. It was one of my former professions.
Yes.
I know how frequently fuel's tested at every stage. Let me just do a PSA here.
Okay.
PSA: if you like your car, use good gas. Go to a branded gas station. What do you mean by branded? Marathon, BP, Shell. Take your pick. These are branded gas stations.
Sad that none of those are American companies, as far as I know, right?
Marathon is, I think.
Okay.
Partially.
I think they were.
They're all globalized. Let's put it that way. Here's the thing. I had a truck with 5,000 gallons. I had 5,000 gallons tank capacity fuel.
Right.
Now, when they say, you'll always hear this expression, oh, it all comes from the same place. Facts. They're not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's Valero, it comes from the same, all of the BP, the Shell, the Marathon, all comes from the same pumps when it's pumped into the truck. There is a difference. Each blend for whatever station you're pulling for has its own proprietary blend of cleaners, additives, and things that they believe make your car either more efficient, more powerful, more whatever. Here's an example. I was pulling, and I'm saying this because it lends to how controlled fuel is. And this was on automotive fuel.
That's what I was thinking. Can you imagine?
Jet fuel is so much more. Right. Yes. So I just loaded, I think my truck total load was 4,800 gallons.
Okay.
All branded, unleaded Marathon gas.
Right.
I'm capped off. I'm unhooking the hoses. I'm about to get in my truck and pull off. The foreman of the terminal comes out. He says, I need you to pull over. We got to adjust your, there was a problem putting in the Marathon chemicals. I need you to pull over. You can't leave with this branded without this additional chemical. It's like, okay, so I'm expecting to bring out a couple of gallons of, he brings out, and I shit you not, less than half a cup of chemicals in each tank. I had 5 tanks, but it was all, Not even for the entire 4,800 gallons, it was less than half a cup of chemical.
And that's for the fuel to power your car, your lawnmower, your whatever.
And that was branded 87 octane gasoline. And they would not let me leave the lot without that additive.
Yep.
So in that very instant, when I remembered that happening, I knew that this couldn't happen. Jerry, what's the final verdict here? What do they say?
Well, with fuel, I had the fuel is one of the big arguments of chemtrails, right? This is how it's being done. This is how no one suspects. And as you said, at a customary cursory view, it's like, well, that could happen. Here's what my response to that is. Aviation fuel, which is Jet A or Jet A1, is one of the most strictly regulated substances in the world. It is tested for purity at the refinery, at the pipeline, at the airport fuel farm, and often at the truck before it enters the plane. Jet fuel is produced in over 98 countries. Now, keep in mind, contrails happen in every country in the world. It's not a United States thing, so it's not something the United States is doing. It's not something that happens in the United States, Australia, and Great Britain. It happens in planes in every country in the world. Small planes, big planes. You're flying at the right altitude, you're leaving contrails. Again, the fuel is produced in over 98 countries. Yes, one FAA scientist could say, American fuel companies, you need to do this. Guess what? He has zero say in what the other 97 countries are doing. There are thousands of non-government fuel testers that would have to be in on it. For chemicals to be in the fuel, there would have to be a global conspiracy that involved every major oil company, every airport, and every country in the world. And not a single person has ever leaked a document or a photo or made a deathbed confession of these additives, even though they're being used to poison the entire world. Like we said earlier, everything gets leaked. Look at what Edward Snowden, one person alone, leaked. And we're seeing that these tens of thousands of people from all over the entire earth are in on this conspiracy. There's no way you could keep it secret. So that's, as far as jet fuel, that would be my answer for jet fuel.
So, in closing,
well, before we close, I got a couple. You've talked about two of the most, and we agree, that's two of the most plausible, most believable conspiracies involving chemtrails. We mentioned some of the ones, there's some really crazy ones out there. For anyone who does believe in chemtrails, and by the way, I understand that like most conspiracy theories, I'm not going to change the mind of anyone who thoroughly believes it, because people who thoroughly believe chemtrails believes that anyone who agrees with them are brave whistleblowers for helping to spread knowledge. They think that anyone who disagrees with them is foolish liars in on it, trying to poison the world. So I know I'm not going to change anyone's mind, but here's a few questions that I would have. Why is it that all planes, whether it's military, commercial, or private, from every country in the world, are leaving contrails, persistent contrails, which are the ones that they claim are behind chemtrails? Why is it that most people say that this began happening in the 90s? There was a change in jet fuel in that time, and we do know that engines began to leave contrails that lasted longer in roughly that same time. There's reasons for that. We began making engines that were much more effective and begin burning much hotter fuels, and the exhaust was hotter, which means you've got more contrails being left. Even so, most proponents of chemtrails say that this began happening in the 90s. There is extensive footage going back to World War II of B-17, B-29 bombers. These left contrails. These left persistent, long-lasting contrails. So this didn't begin in the 90s. We've got proof that these contrails were being left in going back to World War II. We talked about jet fuel. One last thing I would say. The gold standard for scientific research has long been published articles in peer-reviewed journals. This is a rigorous process. You have to submit your data. You submit your research to a reputable journal. It's evaluated by independent experts in the same field. They critique it for methodology, data analysis, as well as your conclusions. They then either reject it, revise it, or accept it. That's the way that new experiments are viewed. That's the way that we determine if they're legitimate. To give you an idea of how popular these are, in 2025, there were approximately 3.4 million scientific papers published. In 2025 alone, 3.4 million.
I wrote about 7 million of them.
Did you? In the last 30 years, would you care to guess how many papers have been written in peer-reviewed journals that supports the idea of chemtrails?
74.
A grand total of 0.
Oh, wow.
Not one. Not one. Again, there were 3.4 million scientific papers published last year. In 1 year. In the last 30 years, which goes back to when they say chemtrails began, there's been a grand total of 0 articles published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. Folks, that says a ton right there. So now let's go ahead with you, I think, asking in closing, how do I feel? Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah, I want to make a statement. We'll give her a thumbs up.
By all means.
What if the real influence isn't chemical at all? What if the sky itself, altered by human activity, has shaped by jet traffic streaked with lines that weren't there a century ago, changes how we feel simply by being different? What if the mood shift comes not from what's in the air, but what we think is in the air? Placebo effect. What if the real power isn't in the trail, but in the stories that we tell about it? We're doing a whole show about it. Maybe the sky is just the sky. Maybe it's a canvas for our fears. Maybe it's a barometer for our emotions. But the next time you see a line stretching across the blue, ask yourself, why does that line feel like a message to me? Why does it change the way the day feels? And why does the idea of somebody controlling the weather feel so much more believable than the idea the weather controls us? Jerry, I give this a heartfelt thumbs down.
I give it a sideways thumb.
What? That's not an option. You can't sit on the fence. That's Brett's
I'm
job.
sitting on the fence. And here's why. I agree with everything. Your last statement, I agree with it. And I would even go a little bit further. Remember when you were saying to affect the mood and how much sunlight affects the mood? What did we say earlier happened when we shut down the skies for 3 days after 9/11? The sky's bright because you didn't have all these contrails. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether there are chemicals added, whether there's any conspiracy behind it or not, if whatever scientist is telling us is true, it's just ice. But due to the humidity at that level, it creates these clouds that stay and sometimes for hours. What does that do? What do these clouds do? It, to some degree, hides sunlight.
Right.
So it, to
Or
some
reflects
degree,
it back into the space.
to some degree, it is hiding, like you said, the cloudy days. These contrails create clouds. So to some degree, it is happening. I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy behind it. I'm saying that more research needs to be done because I believe your last statement, and I believe that all of these clouds do to some degree create these cloudy days that, as you said, we know that to some degree will affect mood somewhat.
So thumbs up from you.
Kind of, a little bit, believe it or not, yes. So I don't believe, but here's the deal. I believe that we need to research contrails, not chemtrails.
Right.
I don't think there's a conspiracy theory behind the chemtrails at all. As far, that's why I was saying sideways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
But
I think that will happen.
do I think that the contrails affecting moods and things like that, it needs to be investigated further? Yes, I do.
All right.
Thanks for joining us on this episode. Stick around through a short break and we'll reward you with a bonus story you won't want to miss. We love hearing your feedback and ideas. You can share them with us at newsworthywithstephenjerry.com.
Hello, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Tax season is upon us. Did you know that 47% of Americans are planning to use their tax refunds for everyday expenses, home improvements, and vacations? What if you used your tax refund for a new home instead? Again, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Your tax refund can be used towards down payment, closing costs, or paying down existing debt to help get approved. So before you spend that tax refund, let's get together and see how to best utilize those funds to invest in your future and your new home. Call or text me at 502-680-0953. Again, that's 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, Das Acquisitions LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
Guys, don't forget to check out our wonderful sponsor, Smoking Gun Jerky of Lincoln, Nebraska. They have over 50 different kinds of jerky, many of which Jerry, Brett, and I have tried personally and would heartily endorse.
Absolutely.
Go to their website, Smoking Gun Jerky of Lincoln, Nebraska. Use the code CRYPTID10 for an amazing discount. In 1909, German inventor named Adolf Whitman unveiled a creation that seemed to blur the line between man and machine. He called it Oculus, although many knew it as the Barbossa robot. This was no simple automaton, however. Barbossa could move like a human, speak, sing, even whistle, performing tasks that made spectators question reality itself. Whitman proclaimed with unbridled ambition, I hold the world in my palm. I invented an artificial man who can make all other people my slaves. Robots are not afraid of bullets or shells. They can replace slaves in factories and ships. I will buy the whole planet. At the time, the inventor was hailed as both genius and madman. His robot promised a future where man and machine could collide in unprecedented ways. Yet history goes quiet after that. What became of Barbossa remains a mystery. Its fate was lost to time, leaving only whispers of ambition, brilliance, and obsession.
It takes a community to protect our most vulnerable from human trafficking.
If you see something, say something. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1 888 373 7888. And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.
we asked Ed Locke what we should do before buying a home.
He said, do check your credit, do save for a down payment, don't open new debt, and don't ignore your budget.
Simple steps, but they made all the difference when we applied.
Ed's guidance turned confusion into confidence.
Hi, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Follow the right do's and don'ts, and you'll be ready for home ownership. Call me today at 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity.